Hey there, and welcome to your personalized deep dive. We're all about making that money work smarter, not harder, right? So today, we're diving deep into the world of budgeting.
It's awesome to see you taking charge of your financial well-being.
You sent us this article, 5 Best Steps for Effective Personal Budgeting. Seems like a solid roadmap, you know?
Definitely.
But roadmaps, well, they can be open to interpretation, right?
Absolutely.
I'm particularly curious about that first step, figuring out our after-tax income.
hmm
The article really emphasizes that, but isn't that kind of obvious? Don't most people already use their take-home pay when budgeting?
You'd think so, right? But honestly, I've seen this trip people up way more than you'd expect. It's like planning a road trip without factoring in gas stops. Sure, you might technically reach your destination,
Right.
but you could end up stranded without fuel for the journey back. Remember that time I was helping my friend Mike with his budget? He was convinced he was a budgeting master, like meticulously tracking every penny. But he was using his pre-tax income. Turned out, he was overestimating his budget by a couple $100s every month.
Wow. Talk about a rude awakening.
Right.
Okay, so no more pretending those taxes don't exist. The article mentions using our lowest paycheck from the past 6 months to get a realistic baseline, kind of like expecting the worst-case scenario.
Exactly. It's all about setting realistic expectations, building in that buffer zone. Especially important if you have variable income, like freelancers or side hustlers.
Makes sense.
It's better to be pleasantly surprised than caught off guard, right?
Definitely. Definitely. Speaking of unexpected dips, that brings up another budgeting system from the article, the envelope system.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel a bit like a budgeting blast from the past? Like
Yeah.
in our digital world?
It does have that vintage charm, doesn't it? But picture this. You're at the store, about to make an impulse purchase,
Oh,
but then you reach for your designated envelope and nope, fresh out of funds.
oh.
It's a tangible reminder, of your financial boundaries.
Okay, I can see how that visual cue could be powerful. But realistically, who carries around wads of cash these days, let alone separates it into different envelopes?
You're right, the traditional envelope system might need a bit of a modern update. Think of it more as a concept. The idea of setting those firm limits for each spending category. And, a lot of budgeting apps now offer digital versions of this. You can allocate funds, track your spending all within those predefined limits.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So whether it's physical envelopes or a digital version, it's about setting those boundaries and sticking to them. I have to admit, though, tracking every little expense sounds a tad tedious. The article recommends analyzing 3 months' worth of spending. Is that much really necessary? Couldn't we get a general idea from, say, a month or two?
Well, a month or two, that might give you a snapshot. But 3 months, that's like a panoramic view. Think of it this way. You wouldn't judge a restaurant based on a single bite, right? You need a full meal to appreciate the flavors, the nuances. It's the same with spending. 3 months gives you a good sample size. You can identify those recurring subscriptions you forgot about or those sneaky impulse buys.
Those are the worst.
Right.
3 months it is then. Maybe I'll treat myself to a fancy new notebook for all that tracking. Though I am all for embracing technology if it can simplify things. The article did mention some helpful budgeting apps, right?
Absolutely. There's a whole world of them out there. They can connect to your bank accounts, automatically categorize your transactions.
Wow.
Some even give personalized insights into your spending habits. But hey, if you're more hands-on, even a simple spreadsheet does the trick.
Okay, so we're tracking our spending, we're setting limits, but let's be honest, sometimes it's just too easy to spend without even realizing it. And that's where this next step comes in, automating our savings. That pay yourself first idea really clicks with me.
Right. It's like setting your savings on autopilot. Takes away the temptation to spend that money elsewhere. I always think back to this quote by Warren Buffett. Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving.
Oh, I like that.
It flips the script on how we traditionally approach finances, doesn't it?
Powerful stuff. It's so easy to fall into that trap of, oh, I'll save what's left at the end of the month, but let's be real, there's rarely anything left.
Exactly. It's like you're tricking your brain, Prioritizing that future self. There's that saying, we can't always control our thoughts, but we can control our habits.
So true. Speaking of habits, the article also mentions the 50-30-20 rule. And I have to admit, I'm kind of intrigued by how simple it is. But does it really work in practice? Or is it too good to be true?
Well, I think of the 50-30-20 rule as like the gateway drug of budgeting.
Okay, interesting analogy.
It's simple, it's effective, and it's a fantastic starting point for a lot of people. Imagine this. You open your budgeting app and bam, Your after-tax income is automatically split into those three buckets. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and debt repayment.
I do love a good visual.
Right. No complicated spreadsheets, no mental gymnastics, just clear-cut guidelines.
It's like decluttering your finances, the same way you would declutter your closet. Everything has its place.
Exactly. And just like decluttering your closet, you might have to make some tough choices about your spending. That's where that needs versus wants distinction is so important.
Right. The article defines needs as those essentials. Rent, groceries, utilities, basically the things we absolutely cannot live without.
Precisely. And this is where I see people get tripped up sometimes. It's easy to blur the lines between a need and a want. That daily latte might feel like a need.
Yeah.
But is it truly essential for survival?
I guess it's all about perspective, right? Maybe that daily latte falls more into the wants category, that 30% allocated for things that, bring us joy.
Exactly. The wants category is where you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? Dining out, entertainment, hobbies. Those are the things that add a little spice to life.
It's all about finding that balance, indulging in the things you love,
Yeah.
but without completely derailing your financial goals.
Exactly. And that's where that final 20% comes in.
Right.
Savings and debt repayment. This is your financial foundation, your safety net, your ticket to future freedom.
Speaking of future freedom, let's talk about those long-term goals. Buying a house, retiring comfortably, maybe taking that dream vacation. How does budgeting actually help us achieve those bigger aspirations?
It all comes back to that roadmap analogy.
Okay.
Your budget is your guide. And those long-term goals, those are your destination. Imagine you're planning a cross-country road trip. You wouldn't just hop in the car and start driving aimlessly, would you?
Hopefully not.
You'd map out your route, you'd estimate the costs. You might even set aside some money for those unexpected detours.
It's all about having a plan, knowing where you're going, and how you're going to get there.
Exactly. And just like a road trip needs fuel, your financial goals require consistent contributions. That's where automating your savings is such a game changer. Even setting aside small amounts each month, you'll be amazed at how quickly those contributions grow over time.
It's that compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world, as they say.
Right.
Okay, so we've got our roadmap, we're fueling our savings, but what about those unexpected detours? Life throws curveballs. Sometimes our best-laid plans, they go astray.
Exactly. And that's why having a solid emergency fund is so crucial. Think of it as your financial shock absorber. It's there to cushion the blow of those unexpected expenses without derailing your progress.
It's like that saying, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Right. And remember, building an emergency fund, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes discipline, and it takes a commitment to prioritizing your financial well-being. But trust me, that peace of mind it provides, priceless.
Peace of mind, that's a goal worth striving for. But let's be real, sometimes, even with the best intentions, we stumble. What advice would you give to someone who maybe struggles to stick to a budget?
Well, first of all, we're all human. Remember my friend Mike, who I mentioned earlier? He swore by the 50-30-20 rule, but his weakness was gadgets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He would consistently blow through his wants category within the first week of the month, leaving him feeling frustrated and defeated.
I can see how that would be discouraging.
Right. And that's why accountability can be a game changer. Mike eventually decided to team up with his partner, and they started tracking their spending together. They even turned it into a little friendly competition.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, celebrating each other's successes and offering support during those moments of weakness.
It's like having a workout buddy, but for your finances.
Exactly. And just like a good workout, budgeting requires consistency and effort. There will be days when you nail it, and there will be days when you slip up.
That's life, right?
The key is to be kind to yourself, learn from those slip-ups, and keep moving forward.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. And remember, your budget isn't set in stone. Life is fluid, and your financial plan should be adaptable too. If you're consistently overspending in a certain category, don't be afraid to reassess your needs, adjust your limits, and find a balance that works for you.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot, a budget that aligns with your values, supports your goals, and allows you to actually enjoy life without constant financial stress.
You got it. Budgeting isn't about deprivation, it's about empowerment. It's about taking control of your finances so your finances don't control you. It's about designing a life you love, one financial decision at a time.
Now that is a powerful statement. Designing a life you love. It's not just about financial security. It's about living a life that's in sync with who you are and what you believe in.
100%. And the best part is, when you're living a life that's aligned with your values, you're naturally going to be more mindful of your spending. You'll be less likely to make those impulse purchases or overspend in areas that don't truly matter to you.
It's like that saying, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you freedom.
Yes.
Freedom to pursue your passions, freedom to make a difference, freedom to live a life that's true to yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Now let's revisit that article, 5 Best Steps for Effective Personal Budgeting. We've touched upon some of those key takeaways, but I'm curious to kind of break it down a little bit further, explore some more practical strategies that our listeners can actually implement right away.
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it step by step.
Okay, step 1, determine your after-tax income. We talked about the importance of using realistic numbers and actually factoring in those pesky taxes. But what's the best way to actually calculate our real take-home pay?
Well, the simplest way is to look at your pay stubs. Most pay stubs will clearly show your gross pay, the taxes that are withheld, and your net pay, which is that take-home amount. Now, if your income varies, like if you're a freelancer or you have a side hustle, it's a good idea to calculate an average based on your income over the past few months.
So it's all about getting a clear picture of what you're actually bringing home, not just that number that you see on your offer letter.
Exactly. And don't forget to factor in any other sources of income you might have. Investment dividends, rental income, even that side hustle you're rocking.
Every dollar counts when you're crafting a realistic budget, right?
Right.
Now, step 2, choose a budgeting system. We've discussed a few different approaches, but what factors should we consider when choosing a system that's actually right for us?
It's all about finding a system that aligns with your personality, your lifestyle, your comfort level with technology. If you
Yeah.
thrive on structure, you love detail, then zero-based budgeting might be your thing. If you're like, keep it simple, I like flexibility, then the 50-30-20 rule could be your new best friend. And if you're more visual, you like to be hands-on, then maybe try the envelope system, whether it's that traditional version with the physical envelopes or a digital version with a budgeting app.
It's like finding the perfect pair of jeans.
Ooh, I like that.
It might take a few tries to find that right fit, but once you do, it's pure comfort and confidence.
I love that analogy. And just like those perfect jeans, your ideal budgeting system, it should feel comfortable, not constricting. It should empower you to make conscious choices about your money without feeling overwhelmed or restricted.
I love that. Okay, step 3, track your spending. We've established that tracking our expenses is super important. It gives us insight into our spending habits. But what's the most effective way to actually approach this?
The key is finding a method that you'll actually stick with. Some people, they swear by those budgeting apps, the ones that connect to your bank accounts and they automatically categorize your transactions.
Yeah.
Makes tracking almost effortless. Others prefer a more hands-on approach. Spreadsheets, notebooks, even just good old-fashioned pen and paper, manually tracking their income and expenses.
So whether you're tech-savvy, spreadsheet wizard, or a pen and paper enthusiast, there's a tracking method out there for everyone.
Absolutely. And the great thing is you can always switch it up. If you find that your current method isn't really working for you, try something new. The important thing is to just find a system that helps you stay organized, accountable, and aware of those spending habits.
Okay, step 4, automate your savings. We talked about the power of paying ourselves first and setting up those automatic transfers to our savings or investment accounts. But what are some practical tips for making automation actually work for us?
One really effective strategy is to align your automated savings with your paychecks.
Oh,
So if you get paid every other week, set up those automatic transfers to your savings account on those days. That way, you're consistently prioritizing those savings goals before you even have a chance to miss that money.
out of sight, out of mind. But in a good way this time.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of those small, consistent contributions. Even if you can only swing like $20 or $50 per paycheck, over time, those small amounts add up. They can make a significant difference.
Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Right?
Building wealth takes time, patience, and that commitment to consistency.
Couldn't agree more. And remember, automating your savings doesn't mean that you can't make adjustments as you go. If you experience a change in income or your expenses change, just revisit those automated transfers and adjust them as needed.
Got it. So it's about finding that balance between automation and actively managing things. Now let's move on to step 5, manage your budget. This seems like an ongoing process, right? Like a constant conversation we're having with our finances.
Precisely. Managing your budget is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing journey. You're constantly monitoring, adjusting, refining your financial plan to stay aligned with those evolving goals and your circumstances.
So it's not about sticking to a rigid plan no matter what. It's about being adaptable, making those adjustments when we need to, and giving ourselves permission to kind of course correct along the way.
Exactly. Think of your budget as a living, breathing document, not a set-in-stone contract. Your income might fluctuate, your expenses might change, your priorities might shift,
Right.
and that's okay.
It's all part of the journey.
Exactly. The key is to stay engaged with your finances, you know? Regularly review that budget, make adjustments as needed, just to make sure you're on track to achieve those financial goals.
So regular check-ins with our budgets are key.
Mhm.
But how often should we be having these financial heart-to-hearts?
Well, the frequency of your budget check-ins, that's going to vary depending on your personal preferences and your comfort level. Some people, they find it helpful to review their budgets weekly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Others prefer monthly or even quarterly. The important thing is to find a cadence that feels manageable for you, something you can sustain.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, staying engaged without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And remember, those budget check-ins don't have to be tedious or time-consuming. Even just setting aside like 15, 20 minutes each week or month just to quickly review your income, expenses, and see how you're progressing towards your goals, that can make a world of difference.
It's like a mini financial health checkup.
Exactly. And just like a regular health checkup can help you catch potential problems early on, those regular budget check-ins, they can do the same for your finances, help you identify areas where maybe you're overspending or maybe you're not saving enough or, just not quite aligned with your financial goals.
It's like having a financial early warning system in place.
Precisely. It gives you that chance to course correct before those minor slip-ups turn into major financial headaches.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone through those 5 steps, from figuring out our after-tax income to really managing our budgets like pros.
We've been busy.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, that idea of aligning our spending with our values.
Oh, yes.
It's a concept that really resonates with me, but I can also see how it might feel a bit abstract. So how do we actually put that into practice?
Well, you got to start by identifying what truly matters to you. You know,
Hmm.
what are you passionate about? What are your priorities? What kind of life are you hoping to create for yourself and maybe your loved ones? And once you have a clear understanding of your values, that's when you can start making financial decisions that actually support those values.
Okay. So, like, if someone values experiences over material possessions, they might prioritize travel and entertainment in their budget, as opposed to, say, buying the latest gadgets or designer clothes.
Exactly. It's all about making conscious choices that align with what brings you joy and fulfillment, right? Like, let's say you're super passionate about the environment, right? Sustainability.
Yeah.
You might choose to support eco-friendly businesses, invest in renewable energy, or maybe just, reduce your own carbon footprint by choosing to bike or walk instead of driving everywhere.
It's about putting your money where your values are.
Yes, 100%. And the best part is when you start to align your spending with your values, you're not just managing money anymore. You're designing a life that's authentic and meaningful.
I love that. Designing a life that's authentic and meaningful. So it's not just about being financially secure. It's about living a life that's in sync with, like, who you are at your core, what you believe in.
Exactly. And it's really cool. When you're living that kind of life, a life that's really aligned with your values, you're naturally going to be more mindful of your spending. You'll be less likely to make those impulse purchases or overspend in areas that, let's be honest, don't truly matter that much to you.
It's like that saying, money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you freedom.
Yes.
Freedom to pursue your passions, freedom to make a difference in the world, freedom to live a life that's true to yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into budgeting today, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Budgeting. It's not one size fits all. It's a journey. It's about self-discovery and experimenting and adapting. There will be times when you totally nail it, and there will be times when, well, you stumble a bit.
Oh, yeah.
The key is to be kind to yourself, learn from those experiences, and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Celebrate those small victories along the way. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. There are so many resources out there, financial advisors, budgeting apps, online communities.
And of course, your personalized deep dives.
That's right. We're always here to help guide you on your budgeting journey.
Here's to taking control of our finances, aligning our spending with what we truly value, and designing lives that are both fulfilling and financially secure.
Cheers to that. And remember, dear listener, the power to shape your financial future, it's in your hands.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.